So as your use of Azure grows over time as a company, so too are the complexities of different projects and different teams and different billing groups, creating resources all within your same account. So in this lesson, we're going to cover the three basic ways that Microsoft recommends that you manage costs. Now, the big problem here, I guess, is that you could have a big top line number. Let's say this wasn't $70 and wasn't instead $7,000, right? When you've got 15 different projects going on and 15 different groups, how do you allocate that $7,000 among the 15? Now, that's obviously very personal to your company, but your accountant is going to want to know when we allocate $2,000 to this project that they were actually using those resources and this is why, etc. So I'm going to click into here and we can sort of see Microsoft does some stuff in terms of breaking out what that top line cost is, and you can perhaps go into it and see in more detail. Actually, this cost by resource report is sort of the home to how we're going to find out costs for various things. So one way that Microsoft recommends is to break things out into their own resource groups. And so if you have 15 projects within your company and you have 15 resource groups, then that's very easy for you to be able to break out the cost. You can basically run reports on a specific resource group. So let's say I'm going to close everything except for this one and then say apply. And so it basically just breaks down my resources based on resource group, based on date, etc. Okay, so doing things by resource group is certainly one way, but unfortunately that's not a perfect way because a lot of companies have resources that are mixed into a single resource group. And so you might have organized your storage accounts into the storage account group, but then multiple different teams are creating storage accounts in your storage account group. Okay, so how do you then differentiate costs if resource groups have mixtures of owners? Well, the next way that we can do this is through the tag system. So you can see in this cost by resource report that I can actually run the report based on tag, or I can see which resources don't have any tags. Let's go back into here and we can now go find a resource. So I'm going to pick this AZSJD web app group, and we can see the group itself does not have any tags on it. If we go into a particular resource within that group, well, the resource itself does not have any tags on it. So one thing you can do is you can just say every resource that's running within your Azure account needs to have a tag. And let's make the tag billing code because that's just sort of the clearest. And then you can just you can put the value. That's an internal code to your company that means something to your finance department. If every resource running on your Azure account had a billing code tag, then you could then go back to that cost report and you can start pulling out costs by tag. And so tagging, one of the purposes of tagging is to make billing easier and to make cost allocation easier. Now you're maybe wondering if there's some special tool, like if I go into all resources, and my account's pretty tame, it's only got 20 resources, but if you've got 2,000 resources, is there some kind of special tool that can go through each resource and put it into the right billing code? Well, no. Short answer is no. You're going to have to make teams responsible for these projects to go through and make sure that the billing codes are correct. I mean, there's no programmatic tool that's going to know that this, dev lab account, storage account, what project that belongs to, right? So if you can't do it by resource group and you got to do it by resource, that's largely a manual process. So you just go into it and you can see there's actually a tags section, and you can actually, again, let's choose billing code and say this is A101. It'll actually pre-fill them for you, and then say save. So now that's just the job of it. Okay. Now then you can go into the costs and you can start to run reports based on billing codes. Now, if that becomes terribly inconvenient in terms of resource groups or being able to tag resources, the next option that you have is to create multiple subscriptions. So that's the sort of the top level organizational structure within Azure, is to say, well, we have a subscription. This subscription is the baseline element that gets, the credit card charged or the account charged. You could have multiple subscriptions, and that would be another way for you to organize your resources such that some subscriptions are for this team and some other subscription is for a different team, etc. So those are 3 ways that you can organize your costs within Azure. Now, I do want to talk about the other thing, which is policy. Now, if we go into here and we type policies, now I don't have any policies on this account, but if I was to assign a policy, okay, you'll see that its scope right now is on my entire account, and I can limit that scope. But if I go into search for policies, we can do tagging related policies, right? We can enforce that all resources must have a tag, and if it doesn't have a tag, we give it a different tag. We can, on a resource group level, we can enforce all tags having a specific value so that all resources inherit that value, etc. So there are within Azure policy ways to enforce tagging, which again is going to feed into your reporting and how you're going to allocate resources. So Azure policy does have things around tags, and you're going to want to either organize things into resource groups, tag them, or even break them out of the subscription. And those are all things you can do within Azure.